Hello, and welcome back to the podcast that must not be named. I am Luke.
I am Melissa.
And we are here doing Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, Chapter 10, Mayhem at the Ministry. This chapter was 13 pages long, and that is 1.77% of this book.
The morning after the match and an attack on the campsite, the group come home to find a disheveled Mrs. Weasley concerned for their safety and apologizing to the twins for being so harsh with them the day before. After seeing an article in Daily Prophet, Mr. Weasley and Percy head to the office to help smooth over the PR disaster that this is going to be. Bill tells the others of the writer Rita Skeeter and her reputation for defaming wizards. The night before leaving for school, Mrs. Weasley presents the boys with dress robes that they will need this year. Harry gets a very handsome new set, and Ron gets a well-worn frilly set. Well, it's the best they could afford.
All right, Melissa. So we had some things that happened in this chapter, and did we meet any new characters?
Well, we didn't meet anybody, but we definitely got some information from, not necessarily on, but information from a Rita Skeeter.
Okay, so it's just a mention, right? And we kind of read part of her article. So it's
yes.
Yeah. Okay. We were pretty much just in the burrow all chapter. We left the campsite beginning of the chapter. I had nothing really new though. But as far as I know, no new locations this chapter for us.
No, but we did get some magicabulary. So we had the guidelines for the treatment of non-wizard part humans.
Okay, all right. That seems... well, maybe we'll talk about that.
Yeah. Like, I can't even wrap my brain around it as I'm reading the words. How do these go together in any sense-making way? But apparently they do. We also got a book, The Standard Book of Spells, Grade 4, by Miranda Goshawk. Goshawk?
Yep.
Goshawk?
Yep.
There you go. I would say she makes pretty big bank, considering she writes every standard book of spells.
At least the first 4 grades. I mean,
right?
Yeah.
She, pretty healthy salary for her. And then we hear about something called dress robes.
Yeah. And speaking of dress robes, our illustration this chapter is...
that I had bookmarked.
There you go.
I want to throw that out there. I had it bookmarked.
You were ready this time.
I remembered.
I think you're about 9 out of 10 this book.
I am. It's fine.
No one's keeping count, though. Although I just said what the count is.
I believe 90% is an A, so I'm good.
Pretty reasonable.
All right. So dress robes in our illustration.
It's ruffly. It's flowy.
There's some lace.
Yeah, it's frilly for sure. And they look sharp.
150 years ago.
All right, Melissa, let's get into some of your thoughts among thoughts this chapter.
Well, so I want to start with the word disorientated.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I mentioned it last chapter, but surely that doesn't sound like a real word. It was mentioned in chapter 9, and I thought about talking about it, and then I changed my mind, but it came back again. And what are your thoughts on the word disorientated?
It's a word. I think it's one of those Britishisms. It is a word. Typically, we would normally just simplify it and say disoriented, but yeah, it's almost like it's more positionally, like a positional use of it, like it just got turned out of place, like it's, maybe I'm just, like orient and like orientation, right, as opposed to disoriented. It's a word. It's just odd.
It's just a word, and it's never bothered me before, but I think as I have been rereading this carefully, I was like, wait, hold on. I think my brain just always translated to disoriented before. So it just struck me as odd. That's all. That was like an odd moment.
Yeah. No, in truth, it's not that odd, but I'll allow.
None. Thank you. My next thought is, in no way does it surprise me that Hermione does not, under any circumstances, believe that Trelawney made a real prediction.
I agree. Hermione in no way would believe that.
Not even a little bit.
Even if she saw it, I don't
even
think
with
she would.
Video proof or evidence of being in the room, she would think it was a fake.
Yeah, which, I mean, come on, Hermione. Be a little open-minded.
Well, we're also putting words in her mouth. It is possible. Had she been in the room
with evidence, she could
justify it.
Yeah.
But yeah, without it, no way.
Don't tell me you're going to believe anything that old fraud says. I mean, you weren't there. Hopefully, like in Harry's mind, he should be like, if you respect my perception of people at all? Can you, like, just give me this one? Can you just, like, it was different? Like, you kind of had to be there?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I trust me. I know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So my next thought, all of my thoughts this chapter are very random because this chapter kind of was. It was like a filler chapter where nothing exactly happens, but you need to know the stuff in it. It's just an odd
Yeah, I agree.
segue chapter.
Yep.
Cauldrons as underwear storage.
Okay, I missed this. Tell me more.
Okay, so I can't remember if it was Mrs. Weasley who was using the cauldrons for laundry, or it's as the boys were packing to leave. Let me find it. Hold on. Here we go. So it's at the very end of the chapter, right before Ron finds his dress robes. And so they're talking about the stuff that Mrs. Weasley had gotten for them in Diagon Alley. So the paragraph reads, he, being Ron, heaved a pile of parcels onto Harry's camp bed and dropped the money bag and a load of socks next to it. Harry started unwrapping the shopping. Apart from the Standard Book of Spells Grade 4 by Miranda Goshawk, he had a handful of new quills, a dozen rolls of parchment, and refills for his potion-making kit. He had been running low on spine of lionfish and essence of belladonna. He was just piling underwear into his cauldron when Ron made a loud noise of disgust behind him.
Okay.
So, cauldrons as underwear storage, at least for packing. It seems really practical to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's that idea of, like, if you're going on a trip and you're taking a couple pairs of shoes, you stuff all your clean socks into your shoes and then you put your shoes in your suitcase. You're using the dead space.
Well, you might as well, right? What else is it going to do? Yeah.
I don't know. And
or, like, never carry an empty cooler. Like, what's wrong with you?
Right. Pack it with something.
Right.
So I was both amused because, underwear is funny, and because I thought that was a really good packing technique.
I think that's completely reasonable. Yeah.
Okay.
I do want to quickly note, I think I was distracted by making sure that we hadn't had Miranda Goshawk referenced for grade 4 in this book before this, that I missed for our Magicabulary, Spine of Lionfish and Essence of Belladonna. I think those could be Magicabulary items.
I do too. Add them to the list, please.
So what's your next note?
Why are they all sending howlers? Asked Ginny. An actual, real live, normal conversation sentence from Ginny. I'm excited.
Is that the first? I think it may have been.
I don't know if I have paid that close of attention to be to give the definitive answer, but I want to say my feeling is yes, other than like the conversation she has at the end of book 2 where she became a plot device.
At the beginning of book 3, when they were hanging out at the Burrow, she speaks a few times, I believe. Because then whenever... I think so. And then they don't hang out on the train. They weren't at the
Burrow in the beginning of book 3. They were in Diagon Alley, staying at the Leaky Cauldron.
It's true.
See?
It's true.
I think this might be the first or at least it's one of the first.
Yeah. No, it's been very few. She has more speaking lines than Crabbe and Goyle combined, at least. That much we can confirm.
That's true.
We haven't been tracking Ginny as closely, but you can put her on the board. We know for sure that she had the information on Percy. She had that whole set of lines in book 2.
Right.
But
that was back when she was pivotal to the plot, as opposed to book 3, where I don't know if she spoke.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, research. I'm not doing it, but somebody could. And my last thought is, again, like I said, my thoughts here are really random, but a Ron chess watch. Ron gets to play chess thanks to his older brother, Bill.
And what are older brothers for, if not to help Ron improve his chess playing abilities?
There you go.
I would imagine Bill's probably a pretty good challenge.
I was going to say, it does not surprise me that it was Bill.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, curse-breaking mentality. I think you have to have kind of a strategic mind for that kind of thing. It just seems to
strategery.
So, my thoughts were a little bit random as well. Again, I agree. A little bit of a random kind of, hey, here's a bunch of segues. We got to get things kind of put into place. But it's fine. I liked it. The overuse of the memory charm on Mr. Roberts. He's like, have a Merry Christmas. It's clearly the middle of summer. But we know that memory charms can be damaging, right? I mean, yes. Lockhart, he's a little loopy after
there
that.
There it is.
Oh,
Lockhart mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
Good job.
Smart me.
Big Sam when he shows up. Not really. Go on.
It's been a while. My next thought was Hermione's derision at the boys wanting to play Quidditch to clear their heads. Like, I mean, of course he wants to go out there and do, like, something physical. Like, I don't know. I just don't like her, like, putting them down. Like, oh, boys, like, get over yourself. That's kind of how I feel about it.
I agree. And I don't think it's even a boy thing. I feel like it's more of just an athletes versus non-athletes thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you would never catch me doing that for fun, but that doesn't mean that people who enjoy sporting wouldn't want to go sport in their free time.
Right. Like, go blow off some steam. Like, why not? That makes, I mean, maybe, again, I get it. That's what
a sporter versus a non-sporter.
Yeah. Just keep your judgment to yourself, Hermione.
And part of that is also she's never lived with sporters. As a non-sporter myself, I have for my entire life always lived with sporters. All of my siblings were sporter people. My husband and my children are sporting people. I happen to be an anomaly. So my perspective's a little different in that, no, I wouldn't want to do it, but y'all go right ahead.
Right. Hey, give me some space so I can read. Like, that should be her.
Like,
yes, leave. I need to get some reading done.
Get out.
Please leave.
But I would get out. Get out.
I also thought it was, I don't know, kind of sweet of Mrs. Weasley of how upset she was, you know, that she like kind of left on sour terms with the twins. Like, I think she does a really good, I mean, it's just really well written by JK of like, you know, like what if you had gone out there and been killed and the last thing I was complaining of, you know, harping on you for was, oh, you didn't get enough OWLs. Like it's kind of one of those silly things that you'd hate for that to be the last conversation you have with somebody.
Yep. Nope. I'm glad she realized it.
Mm-hmm.
Perspective.
And they even make a joke about that later on too in the chapter, which was great. What'd you think about Percy blaming Arthur? You know, like basically, so Arthur has kind of owned up to like, this is kind of my fault a bit, kind of showing, it's kind of more of a modest thing that he's doing. Like, he doesn't really have to do it. He's not obligated to do it. He's just kind of doing it as a help to everyone else involved. And like Percy just kind of takes that down a, I don't know, more self-serving path, I guess. Yeah,
it's really obnoxious.
Yeah.
He drives me a little crazy here.
He's just so self-consumed. It's like no wonder he doesn't really get along with the other ones that well.
All about appearances.
Yeah.
And how do you impact, not let's protect the family. Like, there's no sense of
belonging,
loyalty to family.
Right.
That should come before your job.
Right. I mean,
that's my personal opinion. I feel like that's the opinion of most Weasleys too. That it comes across that like, you know, family first. And it's just not the perspective Percy's taking right now. And it shows him at such a juxtaposition to the rest of his family when they would never have done that to him.
Right. And like literally everything that he gripes about, he internalizes it and spins it in a way that it involves him. Right. I mean, they talk about Rita Skeeter and he brings up how she was complaining about the cauldron. Why are we spending so much time on cauldron things when we should be doing, you know, such and such other thing? And
right.
Like, think about more than just yourself. It's just frustrating.
Exactly.
And more on Percy bashing in a second.
Yes.
Continuing the Percy bashing now. Hermione and Percy continuing their house elf argument here. I love that Hermione is standing up to him on this. Like, I just love it.
I think she's the only one who can in a way that he'd respect.
I think that's reasonable, yeah. Because clearly, what was it, last chapter, they had the first kind of spat about this, and he was kind of taken aback that this is like the first time they've ever disagreed on something, because they're both brainy and very by the book for the most part, and so he's never really looked at her as being someone who would go against societal norms, I guess, and he's very much, okay, he's very Dursley-ish. He wants to be exactly what the societal norms are, if that is fair. Or like, hey, this is what's expected of me. This is what I am supposed to do. So I'm going to do that as well as I can. And I mean, fine, like good on you, but that's coming at a cost of basically the respect of his family. And that's not good.
I agree.
But yeah, I just love that it kind of rears its head again, this conversation. And I like how Mrs. Weasley's just like, why don't you guys go finish packing? Let's stop this. Like, let's not have this conversation now.
Right.
And then my final note here is Ron is a bit upset at the dress robes and being poor.
Well, yeah, I can see being frustrated with that. Those are really ugly dress robes.
Yeah, especially when it's kind of played on top of when you see Harry's and he's like, well, those are fine. Like those look nice, or like, like whatever. And it just comes back to the money thing again. And it's just kind of like, cause I know it wears on Ron a bit that, yeah, and maybe that is a bit of a Percy-ish tendency that Ron exhibits in a certain way of he's a little bit worried about appearances, it seems like. But I think you could make the case that he's just frustrated that there's nothing he can do to help out, as opposed to, well, this is just bad for me. He looks at it as more of a, I wish I could help my family out kind of thing. I don't know, what do you think of that? I don't know. I'm kind of.
I think you're wishing that for him. I think it's really this sucks, and I hate having. I think it's just a kid being frustrated with his life, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because it's not like he goes out and then does something really mean to his parents or anything. He's just being frustrated, and he gets to be.
Yeah, no, I think that's fine. I was more just, it was a thought that I had, and I was like, we'll see if we can talk myself into this one, but no. And he's a kid. It's fine. Hopefully he'll grow up.
And make money and not have this problem.
And then have bills and be like, wow, that's the part that sucks.
Right. Yeah. Oh.
All right. We got any burning questions this chapter?
I do. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. Question 1. How useful do you think Percy actually is during this time at the Ministry?
Not as useful as he thinks he is, to start with, but
obviously,
I don't think he's hurting things at all. I mean, this seems to be kind of an all hands on deck. The more people that can be involved and motivated to kind of do what needs to be done, the better. And so he'd be amazing at that. Hey, I just need a job. I just want to do something and be recognized for it. But I think his motivation level and ambition level can easily carry him in a time like this. So I think he is actually being pretty useful at work.
Okay.
What do you think?
I wonder, though, if his idea of being useful is annoying his bosses. I'm here to help. And so they might be giving him things oh, good, you're here, go do this. But they might also be go do this, to just get him out of their hair, because it would take longer to to teach him how to do the things they need than for them to just do it themselves. And it's probably that kind. Yes, it's all hands on deck, and yes, it's stressful, and yes, it's sometimes good to have a pair of hands, but at the same time, it's not always good to have a pair of hands who doesn't know when you're in that survival mode that the Ministry seems to be in right now. Now is not the time to be training a newbie.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It seems because as head boy, I feel like he's probably a pretty talented individual. He was, essentially valedictorian is what that kind of feels like it means, kind of top of his class. And I don't know. I don't think, he cheated his way to getting that. I think he actually is a talented person, and those skills are going to translate to tasks that he's going to be put to.
See, and maybe it's just me. I work in a field where no matter how good you did on your assignments, it doesn't always translate to real world, what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't always translate to real world success, because it takes a little bit more than just walking in the door and being really good at school.
It's a government job. That's kind of exactly what it takes.
Ooh. And it might. No, not my job.
No, I meant Percy's job.
Percy's job might, but again, not in the midst of crisis.
But it could. I don't know. It could be, I don't know. I can see where you're coming from, definitely.
I just wonder, he might be doing really well, or he might really be
in the way.
Getting underfoot.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Question 2. Did Mrs. Weasley buy...
Oh, hold on. You've muted somehow.
Great. Let's try this again. Here we go. Did Mrs. Weasley buy any other books besides the Standard Book of Spells Grade 4? At least for Hermione.
I think so. This was a shorter kind of rundown of the items that were purchased. Each book we kind of get book 1, we had the full list, right, of school supplies. Mm-hmm. Book 2, we kind of had here are just the things that are slightly different. I think it's just more an abbreviated list. I'm sure there's a new potion book. I'm sure, there's other new books as well, but it's definitely not, hey, here's the whole Gilderoy Lockhart, 6 sets of that. So it doesn't seem like as much, and it's just not as noteworthy. It's more of just, why is Miranda Goshawk's work the only one that shows up as opposed to a new History of Magic book or whatever?
True. Who knows? I don't know. Or, my thought was maybe that was the only one on the list, but Hermione had her own special. Okay, but can you also buy me X, Y, and Z, please? Plus, she's taking different classes, so she could end up with a new I don't know, Ancient Runes book.
Right. Or
Year
literacy.
2.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Question 3. What color would your dress robes be?
I tend to like bright and or earthy colors. So it seems contradictory there. So I'd either go with like a bright green or maybe like a purple to be bold. I don't know.
I would want to say purple for mine, but I'd more likely end up with a blue.
Blue's a good color.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all. That was my only question on
The
that.
more
It's just a
frills,
color
the
question.
better. I could pull off frills. That's fine.
You can pull up frills. I'm more of a straight, streamlined kind IKEA type look, you know? Like,
yeah, real
Yeah.
simplistic. Yeah.
Question 4. Did any of the other Weasley kids need dress robes? And if so, were they as bad as Ron's?
I would imagine so. At least the older one. I don't know what they're for. Like is it just a fourth year thing? I don't know.
I mean, I would assume if anybody else is going to need them, it would be the twins. Because it was on the list. But I guess in my head, like Mrs. Weasley is standing at like the secondhand clothes store.
Secondhand clothes.
Yes, it's exactly what I was going to say. And she's looking at, whatever rack it is. And the rack that is the size of the twins has 2 decent looking ones. And the rack that has Ron's has that.
Right.
And that's it. It's the only thing in his size. So even though the twins might get hand-me-down ones also, they get from a better selection. That's kind of what I imagine having happened.
And we know that they're not the same size for the most part. Ron is consistently described as being taller like Bill, and Charlie and the twins are kind of a shorter, stockier build. And so it makes sense. Obviously, again, we don't talk about the movie, but if you think of the movie, the Phelps twins really kind of thwart that view.
I mean, they were perfect, but
they are so tall. But
yes, that's true.
But in the books, Ron should be taller and ganglier than the twins, so they could easily, require a different length of robe. So I can buy that theory.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right. Question 5. Should Harry have confided in Ron and Hermione about Voldemort and Wormtail plotting to kill him? Because remember, he tells them about the dream and the scar hurting, but he doesn't tell them about the plot.
Yes, I feel like he should have told them. Because they've proven to be good friends to him, and it typically only turns into kind of pointless stress for Harry, being the only one that knows a thing, when he's got 2 really, really good confidences to talk to. And, I mean, he at least goes 3/4 of the way with this conversation, but I feel like he would be better off talking about the true, or at least the true perceived threat.
I agree.
You agree? Okay.
Yeah, I think he should have said something, because he doesn't do well when he holds it in.
Exactly. He internalizes things badly at times.
Yes.
Hey, Melissa, let's get into our chapter superlatives.
Sure.
What was your favorite line?
"Now, Mom," said Fred, looking up at her, a pained look on his face, "if the Hogwarts Express crashed tomorrow and George and I died, how would you feel to know the last thing we ever heard from you was an unfounded accusation?"
That's great.
I love Fred.
And I love that Mrs. Weasley chuckles at it too. Like, she gets, okay, maybe I overreacted a bit, but, that's fine. That was my place. And he deserves to be able to poke fun at me a little bit. It's just healthy. I like it. My
How about you?
favorite line was, "As if it wasn't specifically stated in paragraph 12 of the guidelines for the treatment of non-wizard part humans. Do us a favor, Perce," said Bill, yawning, "and shut up." Bill and Charlie are awesome older brothers. Like, they're written so well. Like, it's so believable.
Yes, because that's exactly what your older brother would have said to you.
Right. Like, give it a rest already. Like, golly.
And he's not quite as rude about it as, like, the twins would have been to Percy. But
need to be.
No, just shut up.
Because Percy respects Bill. I feel like that would be like the one kind of role model he would be looking up to. And so for him to be like, give it a rest already, that's, and Bill knows that.
Yes.
It's exactly what Percy needs. So with that, who is your chapter MVP?
Well, I have multiple.
Okay.
It's anyone. My MVP is the collection of everyone in the chapter who is not named Percy Weasley. Everyone except Percy. I really couldn't choose because nobody was fantastic. He was just so horrible that I decided to make it a collective award that excludes him.
So normally I'd have a problem with this.
I know.
But I'll allow it.
Thank you. I won't use it much, but he was just that off. It's almost like I'm giving it to the family.
Right.
That he's choosing not to put in a place of importance.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree. It's a good point. For my honorable mention, I also had difficulty with this one, and I kind of thought maybe Arthur, for working hard, you know, like doing dad stuff, it's just, I respect that. It's cool, and like good on him. Fred was funny a few times. Bill.
Fred's always a good choice.
Great one-liner with just do us a favor and shut up.
I agree.
But I'm going to go with Mrs. Weasley here. I thought the mothering she did for the twins, I thought was good. You know, she kind of showed the air of, she kind of leveled with them, like, oh, she apologized for being upset with them about such a silly thing, and then kind of made up, and then whenever Fred, for your favorite line, kind of gives her some grief back, she gets it, and she chuckles along with it. I just liked her, the way she handled the stress around the family right now, and it's good for everybody, I think.
Well, and let's not forget that when Ron was kind of freaking out about his really god-awful dress robes, he's like, I'm never wearing them. And she says, fine, snapped Miss Weasley. Go naked. And Harry, make sure you get a picture of him. Goodness knows I could do with a laugh.
Exactly.
And then she leaves.
Yep, I'm out.
Mom for the win.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Hermione and Percy kind of argument that was starting up, she kind of like cut that one off. It was just like, we don't need this right now. It's just a good Molly Weasley chapter, I thought.
And I think that does it for this episode.
I think it does as well.
Awesome. So find us on Twitter at Not Named Podcast. Email us. Words work for me.
Emails us.
I've turned into a cartoon character. It's okay. Email us at thepodcastthat@gmail.com. Go to our website, thepodcastthat.com, where you can find all kinds of really cool things, like our very own blog, where you can check out our blog written for us by Gretchen at Gretcha Sketcha. You can find her on Twitter too, where she writes about our different episodes. Check that out.
Subscribe and rate our show on iTunes. Give us 5 stars. Leave us a message there. We'd really, really appreciate it. Find us on YouTube as well. Leave comments there as well. Subscribe there. Be sure to listen to this Not Named podcast on Radio Public. It's free and easy to use. Plus, it helps listeners like you find and support shows like ours. When you listen to our show on Radio Public's Android or iOS app, everyone benefits.
Join us next week at our 5-chap recap
with special guest Bailey Riddle, as well as first-time reader Riley and target audience perspective Lorelai. Until then, stay imaginary.
Thanks. If Luke claps one more time, I'm going to reach out and strangle him. It'll be great.